allegiance?
Oh, yes.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, you're the assistant chair, chief.
We have a very limited agenda tonight, which is wonderful. Okay, the first business of order is the Commonwealth of Mass. We're authorizing Edward Cawley to sign contracts under $3,000 because he is the highway super, and this is an official form and so on and so forth. Do I hear a motion?
I move to sign the contract for Ed Colley to sign
Is there a second?
under.
Aye.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, no against, motion carried. Take care of this.
Is that a signature for just one or all of us?
Right, it's for the chairman, so I'm the acting chair tonight, so we'll take care of that. Okay. Is there anything from the public tonight, sir? No. Well, yes.
You're our public.
Yes. Okay, very good, sir.
It's all a learning process.
Well, every day for every one of us. Okay, and next order of business is to go over the annual town meeting warrant. And Diana should be bringing some.
You're right. We had this before us last week too, right?
Right.
We'll put this first, that's good. Educational awards.
Right.
Yes, the articles.
Yeah.
I'm just reading.
After we read one, if there's no problem, are those warrants, Diana?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, I wanted you each to have copies of all the material so we could go over it if you have any questions.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we already opened the meeting, and we
Okay.
agreed to sign to this for Mr. Cawley.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you. There you go.
Is this where I signed the first page? Yes.
I'm gonna take this from you, Doug, because you have a copy.
What's the date today?
It's the 9th.
Ninth.
May 9th.
The revenue page. And
Okay, why don't we start with Article 1? Is that good?
Sure.
Article 1, we've all reviewed them over the weekend.
yes.
Is there any problem with Article 1?
No, I moved, so do we need to do moving and second on all of these?
No, I would just wait. If there's any articles you want to remove, we can vote to remove them off the draft, but I would just wait till you're done and then vote to sign, vote to ratify the whole
So I'm
thing.
gonna quietly look at these again.
Okay, let's do them one at a time. That way we can keep track of them. Would that be okay?
Okay.
We can vote them all together,
So
though.
when you other select board members are done with Article 1, just signify to me. We are outvoted very much. One guy to 3 girls tonight, so.
So Article 1 just allows the presentations for the scholarships to take place at the town meeting as opened. I think by law, anything that is going to be put in front of town meeting is supposed to be on the warrant. So Robert had asked if we'd have an article, and we've had this in the past. I think not last year, but the year before we had this article too.
Okay, any objection to Article 1 or any change?
No?
No?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we
Okay.
could also go through this and just do it at the end. You
Yeah.
like to do each one of them?
I think it would just be
Well,
easier
let's
for
do
the
one
minutes.
at a time. That way if there's a problem, we can,
Can we go through them? Can we review them one at a time, but vote at the end on all of them?
okay,
Just
okay.
because otherwise the minutes will have to reflect, each
Okay.
individual vote. That would be a lot of...
I could care less as long as we do it correctly. Okay, let's review number 2.
So number 2 is your budget, which I just gave you a copy of. So you'll have on town meeting floor, there'll be the 5-page expense budget. And then there's the two-page revenue section, which we do distribute, we have been distributing the last couple years, so that folks can understand where we come up with the revenue side of the budget, and they can also see that the budget is balanced by looking at that sheet.
Looking at the last,
Okay, was this prepared by the Finance Committee?
Yes,
Okay,
this is the
good.
Finance Committee's budget, and this is what was handed out at the public hearing we had on April 26th. It has not been changed at this point, at all.
Okay, that's good. Okay, is there any objection or problem with Article 2?
I don't know, would you like to, I have 3 additional items regarding the budget. Probably it would make sense to discuss them at this point if you're going to make changes to the budget. You've seen, we had a letter today that came from the regional school, which we sent out in an email, but that's a copy of that.
Thank you.
So the Hampshire Regional isn't specifically, asking for an additional amount on their budget line, but they are asking you to consider not reducing their requested budget.
that's Hampshire Regional,
Yes,
not Norris School.
right. Because Hampshire Regional's budget was reduced by, I think, you have it on your sheet, but I think it's 20,000, 15 or 20,000. Now, we've all discussed before, if it's voted at 4 of the 5 towns as presented, the town of Southampton will have to pay that money that we've shorted it at this time.
So if we were to vote no on this, and I haven't read the whole thing, I read the paper tonight, however, if we were to vote no on it, and 2 other towns were to vote no, then they wouldn't get that money, am I
That's
correct?
right. They could change it, that's right.
But how likely is that?
I really am not sure. I know of one other town that is having some concerns and may change the number, but Chesterfield's town meeting is tonight, and I think they're either the first or second town to vote. So I don't really know the answer to that right now, Ann, until a couple more of the towns vote.
As far as I'm concerned with this, I would vote no. And the reason being, let's see what the other towns do. And if 2 of the other 4 towns vote no, then we don't do it because we have a balanced budget here. And right off the bat, if we do this, we do not have a balanced budget.
That's right. You would have to have the funding source. The other, you asked about the local school. Well, I'll let you make a decision about this. But we did have another funding request from the local school too, not for their expense budget, but on their transportation budget. So that's another.
That's on the warrant, or is that just that's a
None,
request?
that's not been addressed at this point. The budget right now is at 171, I believe it's around 171.5, and they're saying that they believe it's going to be 180. But we have had, and John Fitzpatrick actually sent me an email today about this, reminding me that in almost every year that I've been here, we've over-budgeted our vocational tuition. We don't have that number with certainty until October, so it's always an estimate based on enrollment numbers now that they project. So it's possible that in October, when we find out the actual number, we could have an excess in that line, and then at that point, we could have a town meeting and transfer it to the transportation line. That would be another approach.
So we could let them know that would be our preference,
Yes.
to wait until to see what the budget, how it pans out. And that's for tuition credit, I mean, when people move to another,
Yeah, or just people don't end up going, they express an interest in going to a vocational school, and then for some reason they don't go, or they just have less students enrolled for whatever reason.
that happens.
It's happened, I think, nearly every year that I've been here, it's happened. Last year, We didn't, at town meeting in December, we reduced that number. If you remember, we had voted, I think we ended up having an additional 40 to 50,000 in the line, and so we voted it and we used it to to offset some other items we had to come up with in December. So we did have that happen last year.
Okay, what are the wishes of the...
Reasonable way to go.
What are the wishes of the body in regard to the Hampshire Regional School System? If we vote no, and 2 more of the 5 entities vote no, then they will not get it, period. So I need a motion from
Well, are
somebody.
they asking us to vote on this?
He didn't specifically ask for, us to increase the budget, but I think he's just, that was, I believe, directed to the, I don't know if it was the Selectmen or Finance Committee or both.
It's
but
both of us.
Both, right. And I think that he's just expressing their concern that they had met with the Finance Committee and, felt that they had done due diligence in their budgeting process, and then we are cutting them further.
Can we leave it to the Finance Committee's recommendation?
Well, you can. The only problem is right now the warrant has to be posted first thing in the morning. So there can always be changes made on town meeting floor.
Now, if we give them this money, it's got to come out of other places in
That's right.
our budget.
The other,
Don't
well,
forget that.
right, the other, right now we have a balance of $56,000 in free cash for FY11 that has to be spent before June 30th, and you've only used $8,000 in this budget. But I believe the Finance Committee did that thinking before June 30th, if there were items for FY11 that we needed to fund, we could have a special town meeting to fund those items.
So we have 56,000 left in free cash. 8,000 is,
Right, 8,000 is what you've used in the FY11. So there's an article that, FY12. So there's an article that says, Article 3, in fact, says to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $8,000 from free cash, and that will be used to reduce the tax rate. And what that basically means is we're using it as a revenue source. We're not, that we have that article every year. That question always comes up. It doesn't technically reduce the tax rate. It just keeps it in balance, which it does reduce it. But so we would have to. I would suggest if you add money anywhere else that you do take it out of free cash at this point and not try to take it out of another budget line. I think that would be incredibly difficult.
so if we were to do something with this 15,000, it would come out of the...
That would be an option.
56,000?
Right, you have 56 total and you're using 8, so you have 48 available right now.
Now, let's not forget also, the Highway Department and the Police Department are grossly underfunded with fuel costs and that sort of thing. As far as I'm concerned, no. And if we get overridden, well, then that's fine, but...
And then maybe we wait to the fall to see whether
Sure.
or not there's excess in that line, right?
Yes,
What do you call it, the tuition?
the tuition, vocation tuition.
Tuition, okay.
Yep.
And then-
Yeah, I think in terms of transferring the money into the transportation line, I think that makes a lot of sense to do that, to wait and see how vocational tuition ends up, and then if there's excess, transfer that.
So if excess, transfer to transportation, are they thinking that the transportation is going to go up because of the gas?
There's an escalation clause in the contract for fuel and a cost of living increase in the bus contract. And this is, I believe, I think this is the final year of that contract.
Why didn't we know this before when we were writing the budget? Why didn't they bring that up?
Well, I think what happened last year is that the same clause has been in there every year, but I'm not sure that the bus company has actually acted on it. And so this year, because gas has escalated so much, they're thinking this year they may actually act on it.
So I guess basically we're agreeing with you. We're not really deciding to take it from our budget now,
Right.
but we will consider if tuition excess.
You consider it
We'll
later, but,
transfer.
at this point, I think it would be prudent not to take it out of our budget that's already balanced. And if we have monies after, we could consider it.
Right. from that tuition vocation.
And that depends, of course, on the vote of the 5 entities in the school system. So what we're trying to do, or I am right now, is trying to be prudent and not take money away from these already cash-strapped
Right.
accounts that we have right here in the town. But we do need a motion to do something.
I'm not sure if we do need a motion.
Well, I would
Or
think so,
He's just
because,
asking us to consider this at this point. Isn't that right, Diana?
well, I think we've got to approve it or disapprove it, wouldn't you think?
Well, you're kind of going along and with your approving and disapproving, so. So if you'd like to see the budget remain as it is, I did realize when I was printing out the budget earlier today, in Article 3, that the Finance Committee also is using money from the operational or operating stabilization fund, I think we've called it, and I actually don't have an article for that. So I will have to add an article in, just so you know, it's going to be Article number 4, and I believe it's going to say the same thing as Article 3, except it's going to say to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of, they're using $7,000 from that operating account, and that is going to require a 2/3 vote.
That was the account that we set up, the small account that we could use. It had more flexibility than
Right.
the stabilization, right?
That's right. It's a stabilization fund to use for operating instead of just capital. So, but I guess when I was printing off all of the forms, the reports today, and saw on the revenue side that they had used that, I realized that that also has to go as a warrant article.
So you're going to add it after 3?
Yes, yeah. And I believe the language will be the same as 3. It will just be to reduce the FY12 tax rate. But it would, like I said, it will require a 2/3 vote because it is coming out of a stabilization account. So that's the only other change in terms of the budget stuff.
Why don't we do
Make a
one,
motion?
one item at a time, and if there's any objection, we'll know it, and that way we can so note it and try to revise it. But if we go all over the place all night, we're going to be here for 2 days.
Right. Well,
So-
we want to finish
So let's do this thing on the Hampshire and Chesterfield Goshen Regional School Districts. What is the wishes of the Select Board? I need a motion.
I move not to take any action on this request at this time, and to leave the budget as balanced.
Okay, so you would be against this at this
At this
time?
time.
And that's
Can we
fine.
say anything else about, like, what we would like to consider in that motion? Like, if it's tuition, vocation, revenue?
Well, that's,
payment?
the one you're voting on now is for the regional. And so that other one you talked about was for local. So for regional, you voted, so far your motion is to take no action on the superintendent's request to consider adding money to the regional budget.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good, thank you. Let's go to Article 2 and see if there's any concern with that.
Well, that's the budget, so we're still on Article 2. And now, do you want to vote to not add money for transportation, which has been another request that came in after the budget?
Oh, okay, is that part of Article 2?
Yes. Yeah, that's because Article 2 is your omnibus budget, is
Yep.
where you vote your budget. So your budget, one of the requests you've had after your budget's been formulated was to add $10,000 to the local transportation budget.
Okay, so an addition of $10,000 to the local transportation budget, right?
That's right.
Okay, is there any motion?
So I move to hold that request until, at which time we know about the tuition vocation budget status. And at that point, if there's excess funds, plan to transfer them to transportation. Does that make sense?
Can we do that?
So the motion is not to take action on this request at this time, to determine to wait to determine if excess funds are available in vocation tuition.
And then transfer to
At a fall town meeting, you would do
Okay, I have a
that.
comment, and please advise me if I'm right or wrong. Should we, because what we're doing tonight is clarifying, these are the articles as is, that's gonna go in front of the town meeting, and then the people will vote on it. So should we add to this, add $10,000 to the transportation budget? And that way it will go to the people, and if you like it or don't like it, you can speak up at the town meeting. But this add 10,000 to the transportation budget should really go in there. It came in very late, but am I right or wrong?
Well, it's the same situation you just discussed with the regional budget. You would have to fund it somehow. So you would add it to the transportation line in the budget, but you'd have to have something on the revenue side. So you'd have to, I guess at this point, I'd recommend taking it out of free cash.
So what is the
And
wishes
we
of
don't
the
really want
select
to
board?
take it out of free cash right now.
No.
Are you saying that? Are we saying that?
I don't think we have any choice on the transportation budget, and that's for Norris School, correct? That's not Hampshire Regional,
That's
where we
Norris.
have 4 other entities in it. We fund Norris School solely.
Right, that's correct. Right. But one of the approaches that John Fitzpatrick had written me last week an email and asked if I'd had a chance to discuss it with the board, and I told him that I would tonight. So he couldn't be here tonight, but he sent me an email today and suggested that perhaps that you might want to consider waiting until we see what the vocational tuition is in actuality.
Town meeting?
No, this would be later in the year. We'd have to wait. They don't certify it till October 1st.
Okay,
So it would be
so-
after October 1st. There could be additional money in that account, and then we could have a town meeting and transfer it
So
between
we could leave
accounts.
this article just as is, not including the $10,000 budget?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm simply bringing these things to you because people have asked me to, so I don't want to not do that.
Right.
But I guess overall, I do feel like, you know, you have a budget in front of you that's gone through a public process, and it would be challenging to change those numbers at this
Okay.
time. So I think that you're right on in terms of your decision-making, but I do feel like people have asked that I bring you the information.
So John Fitzpatrick, he's a school committee fellow.
Yes, yeah, and he made that recommendation, so
That's
he
good.
understands.
So
Yeah.
is the wishes of the select board to leave this article
Yes.
as is without the additional verbiage on $10,000? Is there a motion as such?
Move to leave it as is.
Okay.
To-
Second?
Yes,
Good.
second.
Any further discussion? Very good. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, and that's it. Those are the only additional budget items I had.
Okay, so
Okay.
we can go through these others and see
Article
if there's
3.
any problem.
I'll just read the short ones, just to make it brief. To see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $8,000 from free cash to be used to reduce the FY12 tax rate, or take any other action relative thereto.
And remind me what that 8,000 is going for?
The $8,000, if you look at your revenue sheet, we're actually just using it as a revenue. So that's why we don't have it. You could put it in a specific article to offset something you're purchasing, but
Where exactly is it on here?
it's on the revenue, it's on the second page of the revenue sheet where there's toward the bottom, it says free cash.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's it?
That's it in terms of, we're using 8,000. So there'll be a remaining balance of 48,000 in free cash. Now, by June, if you don't use that money by June 30th, it goes away, but it can roll into your next year's free cash. I mean, presumably, you'll have it available when you recertify your free cash for next year.
Or for 2012?
That's right. After we close out 2011, David puts together all the numbers, and then we certify free cash usually in August or September. If for some reason between now and June 30th, we don't have enough excess money in FY11 to balance the deficit accounts that we know we have already, we may end up having to go to town meeting, a special town meeting before June 30th and use that free cash for those items.
Is that a possibility at this point?
Yes, it's a possibility.
But we have enough to cover the debts?
You'd have 48,000, so that would be, that's a decent amount to have.
What are the wishes of the select board?
No changes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? Okay, it just stays the same. All in favor? Okay, passed. Okay, Article 4, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $20,401 from the WPAT loan repayment account to fund the amortization of WPAT bonds or take any other action relative thereto.
WPAT stands for?
Water Pollution Abatement Trust. This is money that we borrow from, and I believe I want to say Department of DEP maybe, but we're allowed to borrow it and we can collect interest on the money. This is the money we can loan out for septic loans, but the money that we don't have loaned out, we can collect interest, but that interest must be used to amortize our loan payments. So that's what this is.
What is the wishes of the select board?
Article 4 just remains as is.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Jackie, you're doing great tonight, you know? Any further discussion?
No further discussion. You know, we could all read these silently, and if we have any objections, then at the end,
This is like a mini town meeting.
at the end,
Let's do them one at a time, though. That way, if there's anything we can pinpoint, no?
it's going, you wanted to go fast, and we're going really slowly.
No.
Do you want, instead of you going through and reading them, Doug, do you want to just want me to just go through and kind of highlight what it is and what it's for?
That's good.
Okay, so you got WPAT, so you know that. So in Article 5, this is to vote that sum of money from the ambulance fee account, and basically this 137,271 is a number that comes directly out of your budget. It's the total of all of the EMS or ambulance-related costs, and in addition to that, we add $33,000 for the chief's salary, and we add $10,000 this year. We're adding for the first or the second time for EMT wages, and that actually goes into the police department wages.
Okay, good.
Remember, we talked about that.
Yeah, so that's a revenue number that we use to basically help us balance the budget. Article 6 and 7 are your transfer station and water enterprise funds accounting. So we vote to fund the items, and then we vote, we vote the revenues, and then we vote how to expend those revenues. And so they balance each other out. But basically, those are your two enterprise fund articles that we do every year.
Good.
Article 8 is the article that we've talked about a couple times now, the one that's going to rescind a portion of Article 12 from last year, where we voted the library shelving for the children's library, and they're going to give that money back in exchange for the $7,000 they would like to have for the handicapped accessible entrance doors. And that requires a 2/3 vote because it's stabilization.
And that means something comes back to us.
Basically the $8,000 hasn't been spent. It will be put back into stabilization, and then they'll be taking $7,000 of it back out. So we'll get $1,000 back. Article 9 is the capital improvement plan. So you have a copy of that there too with your budget materials. The only item we're funding this year on the capital improvement plan, besides what we funded in Article 8, which is the handicapped accessible doors, we're also funding the 2 cruisers. And so your capital plan will be handed out at town meeting, and that will reflect those 2 items.
2 cruisers for $66,000.
That's right. There's 33 apiece for a total of 66. And that also requires a 2/3 vote because, again, it's out of stabilization. Article 10 is an annual article we do every year. This just allows the treasurer collector to be able to basically shop around for interest rates at banks. It allows her to be able to go out to bid for interest rates and to renegotiate interest rates at rates that are more advantageous to the town. Article 11 is our revolving funds. That's section 53E and a half of Mass General Law, Chapter 44. And each year you have to vote what the fund is, who's authorized to spend it, the revenue source, how you're going to use it, and the spending limit for that year, for that annual year. So this is the same as last year.
How did we decide on the spending limit, or who did that?
Well, we look at them every year, or I have been looking at them every year since I've been here. I think before that, they basically, you look at them and I see it's a revolving fund, so you can't spend more than what comes in. So it's just important to make sure that we have enough money to cover the spending limits, so I check for that. But also, if we have excess money, in other words, if we've been year after year accumulating more money than we've been spending, then in the last 2 years, we've actually taken some of that money, turned it back into the general fund, and lowered the spending limits. And we did that for the dog licensing control, and we did that for, I thought there was another account that we did it, maybe planning board, because they had both accumulated some fairly high amounts for, for the departmental revenue.
So it goes back into stabilization?
It just gets closed out to free cash at the end of the year, yes. Yeah. And actually, last year we increased plumbing inspections slightly because permit fees went up. So again, that money is all the money that comes in and then goes back out to pay the inspector.
Good.
Article 12 is this is the debt reserve. Again, we had excess money in our borrowing, a premium in our borrowing for the Norris edition when we did it back about 10 years ago. And so that money is put aside and it must be used to pay the debt service. So this is the money that we've had an amount annually as an offset to the debt service. So that's this year's amount.
Does that go down every year?
Yes, it has been, yeah. I think last year was 65. We only have 2 more years of the debt service. So it's
But
exciting.
then we have how many years for this?
For this, I think we did this at 20, so yeah, we get a little
That was
ways.
the plan, to
Yeah.
go off the debt service?
Yes, we were expecting the school would fall off and that would help us. This year alone, if you look at your budget, your debt service account's down by, I think, $53,000 or maybe even more. So it's been going down fairly significantly every year.
That's positive.
Yes. Article 13 and 14 are for CPA funding. These are new. These articles look different than they have in the past. Town Council now has recommended that this be the standard article that we use for our community preservation transfers. So this is what you'll see from now on. So Article 13, as we talked about previously, annually you have to appropriate these monies from the general collections into the historic resources, the community housing, the open space, and the budget reserve. So in FY11, we only had 1 special town meeting in December, and this article was not on that, and inadvertently. So Article 13 is your FY11 allotment, and that is your 10% into those accounts. And then Article 14 is your FY12, only your allotment for the administrative expenses. We will have to do this reserve part at a special town meeting in the fall, because we can't do it till after we close out the fiscal year and we know what the balances are. So if there's any questions about that, and I'm going to do you up a sheet of notes and stuff, and so I'm going to put that on there in case anyone asks questions. But Virginia will be there. I'll also put on your list who's going to be speaking to the articles. Mike had asked.
Basically, this is the way that Town Council wants us to present the...
Yes. I believe it came from DOER. I think DOER wanted it to be a standard article. So, and so I think the only thing that makes it a little more confusing this year is because it's a new article. I mean, it looks different than we've seen before, and we have FY11 and FY12, which might be confusing. But I think if we can explain it, I think people will understand. And it's completely appropriate. We've run it by Town Council to do it that way. So. And again, Virginia will be there to speak to that. And then Article 15 is your only other CPA article, and that is 26-9 to be transferred to do the restoration of the old schoolhouse roof. So, and Bob Kozib will be there to talk about that article. Articles 16, 17, and 18 are your articles that were brought to you by the assessors, not 18, 16 and 17. Those are your two articles that were brought by the assessors this year. Article 16 is to grant exemptions for it changes the income limits for exemptions on for the elderly folks, for senior citizens. And it gives them, it lowers their income so they can get the abatements when they're getting a lower income. So it's an advantage to them.
Number 17, Ann had a lot to do with that one. If I remember correctly.
What's that?
Number 17, the 5,000.
Yeah,
To get it lower.
to see if the town will vote somebody, yeah.
Yep, so what 17 does is it basically saying that any personal property that's valued at $5,000 or less, we're not going to tax anymore. So it's exempt from personal property tax. And Article 18, this is an article which Chrissy had asked me to put on before she left. It's kind of a bookkeeping article. Being part of the group insurance trust, we have a Medicare supplemental plan that all retirees are eligible for if they're enrolled in Medicare Part A. So we are just we want to accept this statute, which Section 18 basically says that if you are eligible for Medicare Part A, we can ask you to take the supplemental plan. And what it will do is it will save the town money because instead of having to pay a regular active employee coverage, we'll be able to pay more of a retiree coverage, and it will also save the retiree money because they will only have to pay 50% of a lower premium plan as opposed to the higher premium.
Please explain that. Wait a minute. Let's see. Requires all retirees, their spouses and dependents who are enrolled in Medicare Part A, that's hospitalization.
Yes.
At no cost to the retiree.
Right. It's
Right,
basically,
that is actually no
it's,
cost to the
right,
retiree.
it's right. Medicare Part A is no cost.
Part
And
B
it basically what it's saying is that we're not going to, they're enrolled at no cost, and we can't ask them to enroll at a cost. It can only be at no cost. There's kind of a thing with Medicare Part B, that if you enroll in it after the time that you're eligible for it, you have to pay a penalty. But Mass General Law says that if we, as a municipality, require somebody to get Part B after the fact, and there's a penalty incurred, that the town has to pay for it. So we researched this to make sure we're not in that situation. We don't have anybody, right? All of our retirees right now are under 65. So none of them, there's only one, and that person has Medicare. So only one of, so everyone else, when they turn 65, if they're eligible for Medicare, then we ask them to go on it and get Part B so we can give them the supplemental plan. But if they're not eligible, then they just carry the active coverage.
Well, that's pretty generous, though, to give a supplemental plan. That's like the Medicare Gap plan.
Yeah, it's a Medicare Gap plan. So they would have Part B, which they would have to pay the premium of, but it's still cheaper. Between that premium and our supplemental plan premium, it's still cheaper than them paying like twice as much for the regular active employee premiums. And it's more expensive for it's less, it's better for the town too, because we pay 70%, well, 50% for retirees, but.
Thank you.
And I'll have anything for all the references to Mass General Law, because we have quite a few, 16, 17, 18, I think there's a couple others. I think what I'm going to do is just print a copy of the Mass General Law in case there's any specific questions about the law, or if you guys have questions, I'll probably have some copies of those available so we can read off if people have questions about what the law states.
Yeah, because there's quite a few. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I noticed that too. There were quite a few.
Okay.
Article 19 is, what I'm looking for here is, we have a parcel of land that we've owned for several years now. It's located on Buchanan Circle and Madison Avenue, which we've used interchangeably, those terms. I don't know which one we really call it, but I believe it's a corner lot. It's not buildable. It's got a fairly significant historic resource on it, so it can't be, it has I believe it has a historic easement or something on it, so it's not buildable. But we have had abutters that are interested in acquiring it, and so because I want to do a tax title auction coming up, this was actually a property of low value. We didn't take it through tax title, and when you don't take it through tax title, there's a different way you have to dispose of it, and so we have to have town meeting approval to dispose of it, basically. So this is asking them to just allow you to dispose of the property in the best interest of the town.
And we have someone that's interested.
I've had a few people that have been asking.
What would they
yeah.
do with it if they can't build on it?
I'm assuming they're abutters. I know one isn't a butter, so just to, have more property.
Is there any restrictions on it?
Well, it has that historic easement for the canal, so it's not, I don't believe there's any place that you could place a septic on it,
Okay.
so I don't think it's buildable.
Or structure?
If somebody abutted the lot, they might be able to use a portion of it to expand,
Yeah.
but I don't think you could put an individual septic system on it.
Okay, good.
Is what we're told. And we would be putting that out through, a bidding process, a procurement process, so anybody, anybody that's interested would have the opportunity to bid on it. And that requires a 2/3 vote because it's anytime it has to do with real property, either acquisition or disposal, it requires a 2/3 vote. So Article 20 is your article that was presented by petition. That's pretty straightforward. And I believe, I assume the petitioners will be there to discuss it if there's any questions. Article 21 is the bylaw or the change in bylaw that we discovered this past week we are going to need if we are going to be able to appoint someone to the Finance Committee. What I discovered, if you remember on Tuesday, we had a discussion about finding out from Town Council if the Board of Selectmen members could appoint themselves to act as the Finance Committee. So when I posed that question to Town Council, she did a review of our bylaw, which that's how a Finance Committee is adopted by bylaw. And our bylaw actually has no provision for appointing whatsoever. So in order to be able to do that, we would have to add the section in bold, which says, basically it says how the election would go, but then it says, if after such election there are one or more vacancies on the Finance Committee, the selectmen shall in writing appoint a person or persons to fill such vacancies. Any person so appointed shall be a registered voter of the town and shall perform the duties of the office until the next annual election or until another is qualified. So now let's just say for 1 second that for some reason this fails at town meeting, the only other way we could secure more Finance Committee members would be to have another election.
That would be expensive.
It'd be very expensive to have a special election.
Is anybody going to speak to this? I mean, that would have, in terms of expense, if they have another election and...
Yeah, I'll put some stuff together with your talking points. I can find out from Eileen if we had to have a special, how much it would cost.
Of course, there's no election coming up, so we have
No.
2 vacancies right now, right?
Correct.
So what do we do about the vacancies right now?
Well, we have gotten a ruling from Town Council that we can hold over the people that are in the seats. In other words, you're an active member of a board until somebody else is elected and qualified.
Oh, okay.
So nobody right now has been elected or qualified to
So
those
they're still
positions.
basically active members?
So they're still members,
And
right?
I saw that they said that they would actually...
They both agreed to sit through town meeting.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
So-
really just, we do have to get some end-of-the-year stuff done, so Jim Fleming has said they both would likely stay until July 1st, but after that, they both do not want to. So it is important that we, well, hopefully this article passes and we just can appoint some folks. I do want to tell you, for the sake of disclosure, that, and this may come up, I don't know what happened, how your finance committee was, or who will recall how you got your finance committee formed. But in many towns, I can't say all, but many towns that have appointed finance committee members, it isn't generally the selectmen that do the appointing. It's usually another official. In all my experience, it's always been the moderator that I've seen. Usually that's the case with planning boards and finance committees.
Because it could be a conflict of interest having.
Right, because I think that there could be a sense that you want to have checks and balances. So if you have your selectmen appointing your finance committee, you're in a sense appointing people that could be, more interested in your mission as opposed to, a finance committee's independent charge.
So you're saying until July 1st, we have a full finance committee?
Yes. Well, we have yes. I mean, in essence, we have a full finance committee until one of them resigns. Or until somebody else is elected and qualified, or if this passes, appointed and qualified.
Okay, if this passes, we can then, or somebody can appoint.
Yeah. Right now, it's written where you're doing the appointing. I'm just saying that I don't know if people on town meeting floor would say, well, does that make sense? And if that's the case, you could amend it to have another town official doing the appointing.
If they don't like the fact that we're appointing, we're open to having someone else do the appointment.
I think it would make sense to at least be open-minded about it, because, like I said, we're in a real bind right now if we don't do that. So.
Where do they advertise for the job?
We have like a vacancy list that we put on the website, and if it's for these kinds of things, sometimes we put it in the paper, like they'll run an ad, or a press, a little blurb or whatnot. I think after the election, she was going to do something like that. So.
But when would be the next election?
Well, the next annual election is next May. We'd have to call a special election for this if we were.
That?
Well, like Doug said, there's a fairly significant cost associated with it. So I'll find out from Eileen if she can give me what the sense of that cost would be in case anyone asks on town meeting floor. But it's in the thousands. I know it costs, because you have to pay for all the registrars, you have to pay for the ballots, you have to get the computers programmed for the handicapped. It's a significant, expense. And we have been very fortunate where we've really just been doing the annual one. A lot of communities have to do more, we'll end up having to do a special election, but we don't, I would venture to say we don't have the budget for it right now.
Well, let's hope this passes, and if it doesn't, we amend it to an outside person selecting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my experience is it's generally the moderator. I know, this would really be like an, really emergency situation. I mean, we had, if you think about it, we had, I want to say 8 people that had vote-ins, but they all only had 1 write-in vote. We got 2 people for Hampshire Regional off the write-ins, and 1 got 25 write-in votes and 1 only got 5. So if we'd had 1 person that just got 5 votes, we could have had somebody elected, or 2 votes. But because they all got 1, it's a tie. So. Okay, and then Article 22 is your Wetlands Protection Bylaw. And I will have, in your motions, I will have specific language on how to read these motions for these long articles, especially this one, so you don't have to read the whole motion. So it will be however I'm asking town council to draft this particular one because I want to make sure, because normally you would just do so as written or so moved.
This motion is 15 pages.
Right, exactly.
Wow. So
we definitely don't want to be reading it, and in fact, I doubt that even the moderator will read it initially, but.
And
so
even some of these, I mean, Article 21, we would read Section 2. We have to read that.
I think for that one, yeah, because it's a short enough thing, and we want to be specific about the language that we're adding. So I think it would probably make sense to move that.
So maybe we should let Jackie know how we do this at town meeting.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do, because, because Jackie is new, and also Mike had asked me, as I said last year, I'm going to put more, give you some more notes, or give you a sheet that, for each article, if there's specific talking points, kind of like what I just did, I'll just summarize it, so you'll have, just a refresher. I will put who's there to speak on the article, if there is somebody to speak on it, or if you are supposed to speak on it, I'll put, Board of Selectmen. And what was the other thing he'd asked me to do? I think that's it. Do you have any other requests?
Just the procedure, how
Right.
we each read a warrant, we have a microphone. Have you been to town meeting before? Have you seen
Long
this?
time ago.
So, let's say you start with the first warrant.
Right.
You just start up here, so you read it. Then,
Usually, I think the moderator will read it
the
once.
moderator reads it first.
Right, and then you'll say, I move, and you'll read whatever the motion is, and it'll be written out for you. And then,
Then you move it, and then you give me the microphone, and I second it. That's all.
yeah.
And then we just keep on going down the line, and then back and forth.
Back and forth, right.
So one person reads it, or the moderator reads it, then we move it. And you just say, Mr. Moderator, I move to, and then you read it right off here. And then you give it the microphone to the person to your right, and they second it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fun. Until people start arguing. It's till people start standing up and go, whoa, They don't like it, what we're saying.
We have a short,
Most of the time we'll have people like Diane and Ann said that are specialists, they know really a lot about it, and they'll speak for it or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you are against it, you also have the right, just like everybody else. We have no more rights than anybody else in that
We're
town
just like
hall. The moderator is the
peers.
king.
Okay.
Okay, so whatever we vote, we only carry one vote, and that's it. But if you want to support it, then you support it. If not, fine. If you just want to remain neutral, that's fine too.
and you have the right to vote. You can vote on anything. You can also vote.
The moderator reads the article,
Reads the article, right.
and then,
And then what we have in front of us, it says the motion, and you actually say, Mr. Moderator, I move. And I actually always go down to know which one I'm going to go, because we go in order.
right.
And, at the beginning, I couldn't even get Mr. Moderator out of my mouth. But Mr. Moderator, I move too. That was big.
Yeah. But then you read it over again, and you second the motion, and then you go down.
Then you give the microphone, and I second it.
Okay. So after I read it, then I second the motion, and then...
No, you give it to me to second.
Oh, okay. So I just read it, and then I give it to you.
You just move it. Although you'll be in line also to second them
Okay.
when the person next to you reads it. Then generally, you would say, I second that.
Clear, we go back and forth.
Okay, maybe I'll be in the third or fourth, and then...
What you do, let's say you have a doozy of an article.
This is what
Yeah.
we do.
Like
We
the
sit,
conservation
we
article?
look through this, and
What
it's
you
a
do
really big one.
is look at the next guy and say, I'm going to the bathroom. And then that way they can't give you the phone, they give it to him.
You look at it preliminary, and you sit where you know you're not going to, have to read.
There's not too many that are like that, but
Yeah, what we do is read them, because, some of the words, I look at them and I say, okay, I want to pronounce it correctly, because I don't want to be made a fool of. No, really.
Yeah.
And so I'll read the whole thing to make sure I have it 100%, and if not, I'll just say, Ann, she's a professor, what the heck? No,
Yeah, really embarrassed me.
everybody else. What's this? I'm not bashful. And,
Right.
you're not saying it in the microphone,
Right.
and in that way you'll get it correctly, because nobody wants to be made a fool of or embarrassed. We just want to do the best job we can.
Right.
But if you're really reluctant to read one, just take off to the bathroom just before they're going to hand you the phone. Really?
Well, I love to read, so that's not going to be a problem. It's
That's
going to be
better.
more of the second this, I handed the motion.
the procedure.
That's going to be my problem right now.
It's going to be fine. It's a very straightforward warrant.
Plus, if we
There's
do
actually
something wrong, the moderator, who is Floyd,
Robert, yeah.
Robert will definitely correct us.
Right.
He's-
And Robert usually runs a really good meeting.
Yeah, he
I
does.
must
Yes.
confess or agree. He does good.
Yeah. So with that I think that answers my question. I'm not planning on having town council come this year to town meeting. Are you comfortable with that? I mean, she was here last Monday, we went over the warrant, she's looked at it a couple times, and she can be available by phone, and we'll have her cell number, so if like some question comes up, we absolutely need help, she'll be available, but I wasn't gonna have anybody there,
Yeah,
just
I think that's
because
sufficient.
I felt like it's pretty
There's
straightforward.
nothing really that controversial here.
Right.
No, nothing of, yeah, if there's,
Coming from Boston, right?
right, well, we only get charged from Northampton, but you still have to pay her for sitting there for like 3 hours, so, or 2 hours. So I think if we have tricky legal issues, but everything's really straightforward, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
What say you, former select board members, of the articles? Do we have any objection to any of them? Okay, good.
okay, so here's the signature pages. Just need 3 additional, so you can all sign and then pass them along. And then I
We all
can,
sign our very one, or we all sign all?
I'd like to have 3, so yeah, if you could sign all 3 of them, that'd be great.
What do we do with chair and vice chair, blah, 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 that's all wrong?
It's wrong?
Jess is chair.
No, he's not, well, not for this meeting.
Oh, right, no, that's just in general.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay? Yeah, I didn't
No,
change
that's
it.
good.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. And the orders, I usually do the orders and by your turn, unless you're chair or vice chair, and then I put you in the beginning.
No problem.
Oh, I've moved up.
Did you know that? Did you notice that's how I do it? So
know
Mike
why I
and
was always
Jackie,
at the
yeah.
bottom. I thought it was because I
That's
was
because
the
you had,
clerk.
no, it's because you had, I do it, so now that Jackie and Mike have been reelected, they are down and you're up next.
Well, how many years were you the clerk?
Until you came.
Her whole time she was been here. This
Well,
would have
I
been
ran
her
the second time.
fourth year, right? Because you, this year.
I ran once and now I ran a second time.
Well, but I thought you were only supposed to do that for the first year, that's what you guys told me. How come you had 4 years clerk? What happened here?
You know, I didn't.
That's what they told you.
It's not what you do.
Right, yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
know,
because they'll reorganize really fast.
Yeah.
And they reorganize you.
Well, and also because Anne has not been chair. If she was chair, she wouldn't have been clerk.
I don't, but you're a great clerk.
I'd rather be a tree than a chair.
Or a table.
You have to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff to be a chair. I think you have to be Diana and her.
Jackie, we need your signature
Yeah, I
on
got
this
to
one.
sign. Thank you.
Good, there's the 3. Wow, look at that. Started at 6:30 and almost done at 7:30. That's wonderful.
Okay, is there anything else? Any other business? Motion to,
No minutes, no.
Nope, the only thing we had on the agenda was to review the warrant and sign it.
motion to adjourn is in order?
Second.